Beyond the Hood, stories and strategies to fuel dealer growth.
Welcome to Beyond the Hood with TractorZoom. I'm your host, Andy Campbell, and our guest today is Duane Kautzman. I had a chance to interview Duane earlier this week as he's a friend and a colleague as a senior strategy manager here at TractorZoom. Prior to joining our team at TractorZoom, Duane was the vice president of asset management at Hudson. He's also worked extensively at the Gooseneck dealership. With roots that start in North Dakota, he obtained a degree in finance, where Duane has been able to use his astute business acumen to provide the context necessary to understand what drives the success of equipment manufacturers and dealerships. In our discussion today, Duane and I talk about the financial underpinnings of this equipment market, how he interprets the market, and especially as it relates to the recent Kansas City Fed report that addresses the lowering farm income, lower repayment rates, and the increasing loan demand for farmers out there. We also talk about the importance of process for sales growth, and as well as used equipment movement. So let's get to my conversation that I had earlier this week, where we look beyond the hood with Duane Kautzman.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Hood with TractorZoom. My guest today is Duane Kautzman. Duane, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good. And this is actually our second time we're recording this. The first time, apparently, you have to hit record to actually do this. And so, Duane, double thanks for bearing with me. But I'm actually glad that we're actually going to do this a second time because, we're sitting now at the beginning of June and a lot's happened. There's a new auction season that's really going to start here in the month of June. Yep. And traditionally, it's not a big month for moving equipment, but I think it will be.
Yep.
But it's kind of a result of things that are happening in the broader ag economy.
Yeah, everybody's getting a good feel of what's actually happening now, right? It's squeezing down, and everybody's got to react to it and try and make their position the best they can before the end of the year, especially as we come into the fall and into the winter months, so where they're sitting on even more equipment. So
yes, yeah, and I think the commodity markets, as they sit right now, they're not doing them any favors. I mean, I know planting kind of got rough there. There's a lot of water out there, tough to get it in the ground, but probably at the stage where rain makes grain right now, and it's putting some downward pressure there. So I think the profitability outlook hasn't really improved.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it's pretty much flat from what everybody was expecting. I don't think there's any major revelations or anything exciting there. We've seen a little bit of bump here or there in some commodity prices here back in April. I think they jumped a little bit, and everybody got excited that something was going to happen. But then May turned around and said, okay, sorry. Don't get too excited. Here we go. And you start reading the things that are going on in the world, and it's not improving from a supply standpoint. There's actually looking like there's going to be even more. Right. And so, I don't think the areas where the farmer can actually grab some profit this year, there aren't going to be too many of them.
No, but I tried to grab a little bit in that April time frame. I should have grabbed a whole lot more and sold, but I did not. I was, again, expecting it to go higher. But I think that summarizes a lot of what we want to talk about today. So really, at a high level, what can we look forward to in the second half of 2024? And then, we'll talk global markets because it's always interesting and makes a big impact. And I think there's some things that have happened even in this last month globally that have or have not happened.
Right, correct.
Yeah. And then we'll talk a lot about finance.
Sure.
And, the KC Fed, we talk a lot about the papers that they put out. But before we get into all of those details and what to kind of expect in 2024, let's look back, because I know you grew up in North Dakota, but not necessarily on a farm. And I think this kind of lays good context for what we're going to talk about of your path and progression and your experiences. And then we can kind of get on, the crystal ball stuff of
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. I'm not a farm kid. That's the first thing I always say. I took an untraditional way into this whole system. And if you'd asked me I was going to be in the ag industry for most of my career, I would have laughed at you when I was back at 18 to 20 years old. There's no question about that. But I took a non-conventional way in, I guess the thing would be, is it came through the banks. That was the big thing for me, was around the finance stuff. So I continue to carry that with me as I go through this career. And it's actually paid off a lot of dividends overall. Just understanding the industry and doing that sort of thing. I mean, I started out in the dealerships. I worked for John Deere for 12 years as a territory guy out in the field and with farmers and with dealers and all that good stuff. And then went back into the dealerships after that to to finish out. Getting to the end of my run here, a little closer to that than I am in the beginning. There's no question about that. I'm the old guy in the room now, is the thing, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But I still tend to go back to my roots, if you will, from the finance standpoint. I always believe that everything that happens in this industry, in any industry, is really, it starts with the money.
Right.
That's the big thing, and right now it's a little tighter than it has been over the last few years. No
Yeah,
question about that.
absolutely. Just got done talking with another podcast guest, and we were talking about land values and equipment values, and how we came through the early 80s, the 05 to 08, the 12 to 14, and those ebbs and flows. And it gets back to the money. I mean, it might be the commodity prices, but that provided the available cash flow.
Yeah, everybody looks at the commodity prices, and that's super important. There's no question about that. That means money in the pocket. But unfortunately, through the growing season, you're not selling a whole lot of grain usually at that point and not really making anything. So it's got to be at the right times, right? And yes, the commodity prices control our emotions, but eventually something has to come down, and what's going to happen when we harvest, when we take it, if we don't have any more storage, or if we're going to store it, or what are we going to do those things. That's the time and the marketing. Yeah, you can sell ahead, you can do all those things, be a good marketer, but unfortunately right now you can't control the supply in the world market. And that's a real tough one. But yet you still have to do what you have to do to keep the farm going and keep things happening. So you do the best you can, and try to find those little areas where you can make some money.
Good. Good. And so, from a farm's standpoint, doing the best you can. Before we wrap up today, I want to talk about from the dealer's perspective too,
absolutely.
because we'll probably kick it off here. You're talking about the international markets and the sales. We'll probably kick it off there, but at the end, let's bring it back to from a dealership standpoint.
What can they do?
What can they do?
Yeah.
Right, because that's kind of what this is going to boil down to.
You bet.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from the international standpoint, then, what has moved in the last year to 6 months that you think is significant? And what are you maybe looking at when you look at the international markets of what could move the needle?
Yeah, I think, of course, everybody talks about China, right? And what they're buying and what they're not buying is the instance right now, especially from us, right? They're still buying, but they're not buying it from us.
Exactly.
Is the problem. And Brazil has become a major supplier for them as well. And for a while there that we thought, okay, it was a little dry, I wasn't going to get anything. And then all of a sudden the rains came.
Then it happened.
Right.
Yep.
And it started going, and they started dumping product, all kinds of product, onto the market, cheap overall, and just flooding the market and pushing those numbers down. I was reading this last week too. Australia was struggling with some moisture, and it looks like they're getting a little bit, and things are starting to happen again there too. So we may see some effects to the wheat market if that really occurs long term, maybe. It's hard to say at this point. They don't have enough yet. They're still dry.
Right.
But the rains have started. So from a corn and bean standpoint, to me, Brazil and Argentina, those areas, they thought Argentina was going to be tough. They are still dry, but have seen some moisture as well. And so if both of those countries start getting after it, China's going to continue to buy from them at their low price, and that suppresses ours as well. And we're now looking, even driving up here, their crops are all over the board, but most look really good wherever they're at in that maturity stage. They're all over the board from that aspect, but whatever's up looks really good at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, I know there's, internationally with Australia kind of the ebb and the flow, and even India now importing wheat for the first time in umpteen years and allowing that. It's still not enough to really move the markets, especially when the crop suitability or the crop ratings just came out this past week, and they said 75% good to excellent. It's still early, but that's good. Good for the crops, not great for the markets. So it's not looking like it's going to boost the 24 outlook at all.
And not putting any additional dollars into the checkbook that hopefully would turn into selling more combines and tractors and balers and all those things, right? That's what we're looking for, and unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's probably going to happen in 2024. I really don't see, at least the longer we go with this, that 2025 is going to be a whole lot better at this point. Something major's got to happen along the way here for that to change. So as an equipment dealer, you got to get ready for at least the same atmosphere as 2024, if maybe not down even a little bit more, because of the things that I had heard from the early order program, where dealers had really pulled back on the new sales because of the amount of used equipment that they have sitting on the lots today. So overall sales may come back a little bit as well. So you may even have a little bit more retraction in 2025 if things continue the way they're going. So.
Yeah, and that, going out to dealer conferences, that is kind of the sentiment out there, that they said they think 24 is going to be okay, not great. 25 is really kind of what they're worried about. From more recent conversations, it sounds like 24 might be even a little more challenging than what they initially thought. And like I said, you can hope for something great to happen, but hope's not a strategy. So, so you really need to plan for what's here in front of us.
Well, and it's really around that used equipment, right? I mean, from a dealer standpoint, the amount of used equipment that they have on their lots right now, and it keeps piling in. I mean, they sold all their 2024 stuff back in June of 2023. It started where those early order programs start to go. In June, July, August, September, they tend to sell a lot of their new equipment at that point. Well, so they haven't seen that retraction in the new equipment in 24. So that's why they're thinking, okay, 24 is going to be okay, but then we got a pile of used that we may lose money on.
Yeah,
with probably
7% interest rates.
Yeah, exactly. When we backed off on the new for 2025 now, so now either you got to make it up in used sales because you don't have all the new sales out there going on. So it's a vicious cycle at this point, right? And so you got to kind of catch up with yourself, and it usually takes about 2 years to do it.
So I'm going to ask you probably an impossible question here, but you've got experience in multiple different dealerships, and then on the OEM side as well. Sure. But let's say you are like 90% of the the dealerships out there, the used equipment managers, and you're sitting on a bunch of used because you've got this backlog. What do you do now? Because we're at the beginning of June, so potential sales season coming up ahead of you, but it's also potential auction liquidation season. Right. So how do you wrestle with just unloading it and taking a pretty massive loss, potentially massive loss? You don't know what those auction values will bring exactly, or trying to eke out, those retail sales. I mean, that's a balance. Right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. There's no question about it. Nobody has an answer to this. That I haven't found it in 25 years. If they did, we'd all be doing it, kind of thing. But yeah, there's the easy way is just to dump it out onto the auction market, right? But then, okay, you're gonna take a beating from a profitability standpoint overall, and you got to be able to absorb that. I think it's got to be a little of everything. We can't avoid, in my opinion, again, just my humble opinion, is that you can't avoid the auctions completely. There's pieces that you bought properly from a wholesale standpoint or for traded in properly, don't have the dollars in it like, super high dollars because you were trying to get a market share deal or do something like that. Yep. So you can take those pieces and probably be okay. If you can break even and get out of them without losing any money, great. You got to identify those, right? You got to get out there. Overall, to me, it's going to take more inventory management, right? You got to be able to identify those pieces that we could get out of that possibly won't lose a bunch of money.
Those high risk pieces.
Yeah. So now I've got my high risk ones, right? Where I've got maybe their late model, usually, 1 or 2 year old trades with low hours on. Those folks that were buying those kind of disappeared for a while because of Section 179 and the pricing. It was like, okay, I can write this whole thing off on my taxes, or hey, it's not a whole lot more to jump to a new one versus a 1 year old one, so I'm just going to go that way. We're starting to see those people come back, which is a very good thing. We need those people in the marketplace because now the new ones, because of inflation and everything that happened in the last probably 18 to 24 months with pricing from the new side, they're now buying those units. There's people out there now in that market. You've really got to start identifying those people. That to me is managing the sales activity on the front end. You have to make sure that you truly are touching every person inside of your area. You got to make sure that you're there. They have money. Most folks, right? Most producers have money, according to everything you read today. Now, is it starting to turn? Yes. I mean, we've both looked at these things, and the Fed's saying that there's more delinquencies out there. It's starting to inch up slightly, not a lot, but slightly. There's more loan demand. Banks' basic loan to deposit ratios are about 5% higher than they were this time last year. So that means they're borrowing out more money. Not bringing in as many deposits maybe, but just borrowing out more money. I was looking at farmers' balance sheets, right? Everybody wants to look at balance sheets, and that's great. We can do that, but that's not liquid dollars to be able to go out and buy equipment and do those sorts of things. So you can look at their debt to asset ratios haven't moved much at all really from last year. They're fairly similar, but their debt to income ratio has moved dramatically, almost 2 points, and that's a lot. And so that means the money coming in to be able to pay the bills. So they're starting to get cash strapped, slowly but surely. So that's the money they're using to buy equipment. But doesn't mean they're not buying equipment. They are, but they're buying the stuff they absolutely need.
Right, being way more judicious with what they're.
But you need to be there when they're ready to buy.
Right. And then this is, and the first time that we recorded, this is a big part of the conversation that we had of you being in front of them, and then also from a record standpoint, they may have shifted in the past couple of years, getting back to what you mentioned with 179, and last year being an unexpected good year where there's more profitability at the end of the year, and certainly in 21 and 22 where people had a lot more cash. They might have bumped ahead in the buying cycle and bought new or maybe a once used type of piece, and now maybe they're reverting more back to that normal washout cycle. Right. But you have to know who they are and have to have good records of, are you building a relationship with them, and and what are their needs now, because they might have been different than they were a few years ago.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, heck, 18 months ago, you're just trying to keep up with the phone calls as a dealer and trying to just, sell everything that you can get your hands on. But now it's going to be all about getting out and seeing them and making sure that you're doing it and having record of it. As a sales manager, you absolutely have to know what your team is doing. And it's not that you're over them trying to figure out what's every minute of the day. It's about, are we seeing the right people, making sure we have the opportunities to be able to sell this stuff. Used equipment managers have to be cognizant of everything that's in their inventory. Sometimes that can be tough. I mean, the last organization I was with was pretty large. And to be able to know what was in the farthest northern part of our area and the farthest southern, it was impossible. I barely knew what was outside my window. At that point, and so I need a system that tells me, here's the pieces I need to be looking at, here's the things that I have to check on, here's the pieces that possibly could age based on other information in the marketplace, not just based on my area or what I'm seeing, because we can get real myopic in that it's like, this is just my area, right? It's like,
especially when you get stressed, because
you
do focus down on what you know best, what you can control, and it's very easy to lose sight of those areas on the fringes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like the commodity prices, right? It's not just what the U.S. does, it's everybody else. Well, it's kind of the same thing in the equipment business. It's not just what happens in Iowa or Indiana or Kentucky or those types of places, or North Dakota. Or it's about what's going on all across the U.S. because everybody shops across the whole U.S. They don't just shop always at home. I wish they would, but they don't. And so you just have to realize that. So you need to be on their yard when they're ready to buy and take advantage of that opportunity. The only way you can do that is by managing your sales activity. Are we seeing everybody on a regular basis? Doesn't mean you have to see them every day. You just have to go out and see them on a regular basis. Make sure that you're there and be able to manage it. If you can't see what your guys are doing, it's pretty tough to manage.
Right. And I know from conversations, actually it was a podcast webinar that we had almost a year ago, where you were there, Brian Knox was also in there, Trent Giles, and a big part of the discussion was that we just have to kind of retrain ourselves to, remember what sales is actually like. I mean, this is not order taking anymore, and part of that also is managing sales. It's no longer order taking, it's not going to fly off. It's how do you manage your pipeline and make sure that everybody's doing the regimented stuff to build relationships.
Absolutely.
For those eventual sales.
Yeah, and try and pick that low-hanging fruit, right? If you've got programs from your OEM, or if you've got your own internal programs or that sort of thing, and you see that a salesperson actually has an opportunity, and maybe it's an interest rate that you can buy down to get them some nice low interest rate, or maybe it's some incentive that the manufacturer is giving you, that type of thing. You have to take advantage of those things, but be able to see them is the big piece, right? Being able to see those opportunities. Yeah, being able to say, okay, Andy's out and he's seen 3 people, and this one looks like it's really close. What's it going to take? Well, it's going to take a low interest rate. Great, I can give you that. Let's go close this deal today. Let's go get this done. And everybody knows those things. I don't think that's a revelation to everybody. It's the execution of actually doing it, having the systems to be able to do it, to be able to see it, and be able to monitor it and manage it is also key.
Hey, everybody. Andy here. I want to take a moment to ask you to subscribe and follow this podcast just so you don't miss out on all the latest updates and insights for your dealership. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
Yeah, and getting back to the inventory piece, I know we're jumping between sales and UEMs and used equipment side, but the systems for a used equipment manager to understand, okay, how risky is this piece? Because you've got your cost in it, and then you got your holding cost, but you also have the trend of the individual unit or the category of unit, because I can tell you from this past year, combines, row crop tractors, sprayers, they've all gone down a little bit, softened a little bit, but at much different rates and at much different times.
Absolutely.
And so to know what's worth, getting rid of right now versus what's worth hanging on to for the next sales season, that's not so easy when you have all these different moving parts.
No, and that's probably one of the hardest things, right, is to find those trends and to find them where they start and where do they end, because the other side of that's just as crucial when you can start, making a few more dollars on going up the other side. But you have to have great data. You have to have the most accurate data and the most current. Now, there's nobody out there that can provide you instantaneous of everything that's happening, but Tractor Zoom gives you the best you can get out there right now. The other traditional areas we've gone to tend to lag. They update once a quarter, once a month, once every 60 days, where this is constantly updating as things happen. And yes, it's not real time the minute it happens, but it's within hours or, that kind of thing to be able to see all this stuff and be able to grab it and find the best information as you're trading in a new piece. Wow, look at what's happening out there right now, because things can change that fast. 2 massive auctions in one day really can affect the value of everything real quickly.
And they did. I mean, I can tell you specifically on self-propelled sprayers, because I tracked those. I got sick of them this spring, but in January and February, they actually looked like they were doing decent. And a couple prime, pieces were bringing decent dollars. In the past 5 years that I tracked, never before did I hit a January, February sale that beat the prior December sale, except for this year. And so it gave the illusion that this market is still going strong, and then March.
All of a sudden, boom.
It did not go well.
It didn't go well.
Right. And so, even if you had a 30-day delay on the recency of your data, you're missing a lot of potential sales that you could have either been making some action on or been more aggressive on that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you had you had some numbers from December, or you had some numbers from March, now all of a sudden there's a lot of things that can happen in between there, and those values, as you just found, can fluctuate dramatically. And if you don't see that or can't see that, it can be detrimental. No question about it. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you're on the positive end of that, but that's not always the case. It's usually the negative side, unfortunately. So used equipment managers, to me, have to be very cognizant of what's going on in their inventory. And again, it can be tough if it's large, unless you have systems to be able to flag those or identify those pieces that, hey, these need attention. Consistent repricing processes, that if it's a timeline, whatever you use as your benchmarks, because we can all argue as to what's the best. Right. But hey, every so often, here's whenever it hits this benchmark, this is what we do. If it's a day thing, every 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, we're looking, either repricing, doing something. And stay aggressive as you can be with your programs and things that maybe your manufacturer's offering to you, or you can do internally to try and get rid of things. I'm not a 100% fan of avoiding auctions. I would love to be able to say that we could do that in this industry. I think it's a necessary evil, if you will, in our world. But it's just another avenue, right? It's one of those things that, like I said, you've got to look for those pieces that maybe are doing okay at auction still. And can you get rid of those and be able to come out, if nothing else, break even? That's better than losing money on them, and you're lowering your inventory, right? And bringing those things down and making room to either bring in another trade that you've got coming, which I'm sure you probably do, or free up some cash to be able to go buy something right, because other dealers have a bunch of used inventory and they're really wanting to get rid of some things. Right. So if you can put yourself in that position, well, man, life's good at that point.
Yeah. And from the repricing point that you brought up, I don't think I've answered as many questions, in the 4 years prior that I've been at Tractor Zoom as I have in the last 4 months on repricing strategies, best practices. And we've looked and worked with a lot of dealers all across the U.S. on, how they're repricing. And like you said, everybody does it a little bit different. But the one commonality that I'm definitely seeing is attention to recent data and making more recent decisions. And maybe the decision is a no decision of, hey, I'm going to punt this and, snooze this alert for 30 days. But it's that attention. And it can't be overly cumbersome, because if it becomes overly cumbersome and you've got 1,000 different lots out there, then you just don't get through the stuff.
Absolutely. I'd also say be careful, don't get caught into the seasonality trap. The seasonality thing has kind of gone away to some degree, right?
It's muted for sure.
I mean, go look at, people buy combines all year long. They don't just buy them just before harvest. People buy planters all year long. Now, yes, there's higher numbers at certain times of the year. I get that. But don't get caught into that trap that if I hang on to this till next season, that I'll probably get rid of it. Because remember, you're paying 7 to 8% interest on this stuff in most cases, and the cost starts adding up very quickly. So quick decisions. Hey, this one isn't going to work in our area. It's just not something we sell. Okay, we need to buy it right and auction it. Get rid of it. Move it out, and we don't have it, kind of thing. Or if we can get this here, we possibly can sell this, have homes. Think about who the next 3 to 5 people are you're going to go to with that piece of equipment. Again, managing your sales activity.
Right. Gets back to that.
Yeah.
So again, it has to wash out.
It has to. Yeah, we've got to have a home for it, and so help your used equipment managers. They got enough pressure. They're all frazzled already, and if you don't have opportunities, you're just trading things in without thinking about where they're going. That's not helping them. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So then we've talked sales, we've talked UEMs, and looking the crystal ball now for the next 6 months. We've already kind of covered commodities that outside of a black swan event, it's gonna, we're walking uphill here.
We're in what we're in.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what about like parts, service, the absorption side?
Yeah, I think again it comes back to that sales activity, right? You really got to have your parts and service department supercharged through these types of events. And this is why the absorption factor, if you know what I'm talking about from that, is always talked about, or just having the ability of those parts and service departments to pay the bills. It's super important. The good times, you can cover a lot of sins, right? On some of the things that are going, the sins show up in the bad times.
Stress test.
But I always like to say now is the time to establish those good behaviors and to carry those into the good times. Don't forget about them when things start getting crazy and whatever. Continue to do those things. And to me, that's the parts and service department. You continue to build that business, and you continue, no matter what the atmosphere is like. I get it that everybody's stressed out when it's crazy busy and all that good stuff, but you got to continue to add customers, got to continue to see customers, got to continue to talk to them. If your sales teams are out selling the entire dealership, not just the combine or the tractor, if the customer's not looking for that, offer them oil, offer them filters, offer them parts that maybe they need shovels for a cultivator or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Sell them something from your dealership. If it's some kind of service that you offer or whatever it is, sell them something. They may not be able to buy the new tractor or the new combine, but I bet they're going to need some parts.
Right.
And, you may have to go above and beyond. Maybe, hey, I'm going to be out here next week. I'll drop them off. Let's just put it onto your multi-use account or your farm plan account, what most people used to call farm plan. Or if you've got another credit card or whatever, just put it on there and I'll bring it out to you. Make sure you get paid first. That's the important thing.
That's true. True. On the service piece, and this relates a little bit to what we talked about right before we started recording, on a consultative sales approach. So whether that's paid for service or whether it's helping somebody out. But we're talking about what makes a better salesperson versus not in a dealership. Do you want to elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, I think in the last few years, if you kind of sit down and really examine the sales arena, the amount of product knowledge that each of the salespeople know has dwindled off. Again, my opinion, but I've seen a lot of dealers and talked to a lot of folks, and so it sure seems like that product knowledge isn't as acute as it used to be. And I think it's super important in this time when your salespeople have time and have the ability. Now's the time to get out and start reading through the owner's manuals, the sales manuals, driving the tractors that are in the yard, and make sure you know how to operate them. Because if you look at the most successful salespeople in those dealerships, they tend to be the ones that know everything about how these things operate, right? They can walk out on the farm. They're smart, though. If they're the quarterback and they're selling a lot of stuff, they let the service folks go out there and do those things. But if they have to, they can get out there and do it.
Yep,
right?
they're at least your point of contact, and I know
Right.
that's what we rely on our farm. Like when we can get something connected, when we need something, it helps just to be able to say, call Adam.
Yes.
And then it's taken care of. Whether Adam actually comes out and does it, or whether he finds a guy.
Yeah. Execute whatever you said you're going to do. Always follow through with what you're going to do. And if you don't, make sure your customer knows that. Hey, I made a mistake. Admit them. I can't get this done, but here's what I can do. And so you get that handled. But you want to be that knowledgeable person. You want to know everything that's happening. You don't ever want to be in a situation, to me, where it's like, I have absolutely no clue on how that works. You know, well, we need to.
Right,
We got to have at least a small knowledge of it, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, I don't know all of it, but I know a guy that does, right? And I will get a hold of that individual or a gal and bring them out and get this figured out for you. We'll get this handled. But I've always found that the most successful sales guys I've had, they can take from front to finish, right? From start to finish, they can hop in a tractor and they can set up all the technology. They can run it all. They can do it all. And they learn that by physically doing it. And they didn't know it all the day they got into it. They learned it. But you have to have that passion and that desire to want to get better, want to learn more, want to know more. As fast as this equipment is changing, I know it's hard.
Right.
But you've got to make an effort. And now that there's a little bit of time, a little bit of breathing room, if you will, take some time to sharpen the saw, if you will, right? I know that's an overused deal, but
I can say it to me all the time.
It's like, take some time to do it. And make sure that it's ready, because this will turn again and things will start going crazy and you'll be ready at that point. So.
And I think it's important to bring up too, because I saw this in my last industry that I was in. So not slightly ag, is more food, but heavy technical, scientific on the food. And we were having a globally concerted effort to add to the middle. Because what had happened demographically is a lot of baby boomers were retiring, and they held so much of the knowledge. And we're seeing this all across the industries. I'm sure dealerships are seeing this all over the place as well. Once those people retire, they have all the power in their brains. Some of it gets passed on, but it's tough. And then so they created a vacuum when they leave. And so you have this middle age, anywhere from right now would be like a higher 30s to mid 50s. They get promoted to fill those gaps, and they move on up, and now you have a hollowing out of the middle and people kind of rushing through a lot of their careers. We saw it post-pandemic when people were job hopping a lot, because there's great opportunity for them to move up the ladder. But what it does is it creates a vacuum in the middle that used to hold so much of the knowledge of teaching and coaching that there's a vacuum, there's a gap. And so it's not just the ag industry, but it does create this lack of managerial coaching knowledge to pass on to the quote unquote next generation.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what to do. Like it's just knowledge gap.
You don't know what you don't know. And so this is kind of for the older guys in my generation, is to please take someone under your wing and teach them this business. It's exciting. It's a great business to be involved with. It's very rewarding, as you know, because you've been in it a long time, right? Most of you guys out there. So please take somebody and teach them what you know. Don't be afraid. It's not that they're going to take over what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. They will be grateful, and you will be doing a service for everybody. No question about that.
Right. And I can't remember which prior guest it was on, if it was Jeff up at Greenmark, but they talked about teach somebody.
Yes.
I mean, if somebody doesn't come in with the farm background, which there's less and less people coming in with the farm background now, you don't need that, but you need a good attitude to come in, and you can teach them the other things.
Yeah. Most of you guys get their satisfaction from winning a deal. Just wait till someone says that you were their mentor.
Right.
That means a whole lot.
It does. And I mean, I know my mentors are like forever indebted to them.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
But it makes them feel good too when you go out and say that, hey, this was my mentor, and you're successful, and they're successful, and it's great. So that's another win in the book. If you're looking for a win as a sales guy, we always are. So it's like, hey, you're looking for that win, teach someone and watch them grow. And when they get better, there's no better feeling.
Okay, good. Well, on we talked processes and systems, and I know you're a systems type of person.
Yeah.
So I want to draw a little bit more out of you while you're here. What systems work for you personally? Do you have any little bits of advice for the rest of us of, what works?
Yeah, I think that, you have to have things that draw your attention to the things that are important in the industry. We talked about, the sales activity. It's really hard to be successful in the dealership, in my mind, long term and consistently. You'll have peaks and valleys just because They're there. That's just that's the market. But if you want to be consistent, you have to be able to manage your sales activity. You also have to have systems that allow you to see inventory, how much you've got, because that's the largest dollar investment in the dealership is that whole goods inventory. You got to make sure that you're managing that and keeping that in front of people and keeping it turning and moving. The only way in my mind that I've ever found that happen is through a CRM of some sort. Anvil is the one we like to promote. So this system is quite unique in the industry. There are others that have the workflow piece encompassed in it as well. And we're starting to get more and more tools for managers to utilize. And the beauty of this system is you can create your own things that are important to you. You can create the reports to be able to manage and watch the things that are important to that individual dealership, because it's not the same for everybody. And so you can pick and choose, and every year changes. You got different things that you're chasing after, so you can manage and watch them. But if you can't see them, there's no way you can manage them. You know, like you said, hope's not a strategy, right? It's one of those, you can hope that it's going to happen, but if you don't know, how many times you've been sitting in a meeting and what do you got? What are the dollar figures here? And you go, wouldn't it be great to be able to snap that off top, right? And just know, because you've seen it this morning when you walked in. Here's the number. Here's what we got in the hopper. And here's where we're at. Here's where we're close to closing. And here's what we've got to do. From a used equipment manager standpoint, reports that are showing you pending trades that are coming in, so you can start to plan. Dollars that are actually on the books, what age those dollars are, what those units are, and where they need to go, and what's your mix going on, and from a new and a used, or turf and an ag, or CCE type thing, or that type of stuff. So the CRM was just opened my eyes dramatically on how to manage this piece overall, and the Anvil piece put all those things in one spot for me was the thing. Then adding the tractor zoom piece on top of that to bring that information in from a used equipment standpoint, the savings in time. I know as a dealer, the hardest thing in the world is going to be, I'm not making any money. Why would I go out and spend money on a system?
Right.
But think about, again, start building those best practices today. That's one. But think about, if I could do a quarter more of the work with the same people that I have, what value does that have to you? You saved on employees, but you put it into a system. Now the system has got the price. It is what it is. But employees can cost and cost and cost and cost.
Right.
We
And
know
they can
that.
leave.
And they can leave, right? And the system's it doesn't get sick, doesn't need vacation, doesn't need any of those things. And so you have to look at the intrinsic things that are outside of just the dollar figure that you write the check for. If your people save time, what's that time worth? Every person in your organization saves X amount of time. What's that time worth to you? So you have to look at those things today to say, okay, is it worth the investment? Because if I can save 2 people at $100,000 salary plus benefits, let's double it. That's $400,000 if you had to hire 2 people to do the used equipment, for instance, because you're going to be looking at more trades. You're not going to probably be trading things in all the time, but it's going to take 10 trades to find one sale.
Right.
So now your used equipment manager's workload just went up, right? But you're not selling as much. So you sure as heck don't want to add another used equipment manager. So maybe a system can help that individual do as much, twice as much, whatever that number is. It's worth those dollars. So from a manager's standpoint, when you're making these decisions to put in these efficient systems, you have to look at everything, not just the number that you're writing the check for.
Yeah, and getting back to one of the earlier points you're making when you're talking about the CRM system and tracking what you're doing, it reminds me, I think we had the first conversation when I didn't hit record, but the study actually came about when I was teaching, I doing a little bit of research on what gets measured gets managed.
Sure.
And I believe it was in the 1930s, I should have actually referenced it since the time that we first talked till now, but the Hawthorne effect.
Yeah.
And we'll throw the study in the show notes, but it was I think World War I or World War II study that was done on women that were making light bulbs, because men are off to war, they needed to make light bulbs and they're trying to make them more efficient. And so before the study, they had gone into this light bulb factory and started to benchmark, just baseline, like what the throughput is for all these ladies in a line making light bulbs. And they wrote out the number above them on chalkboard, what they were doing. The ladies were curious, they asked what it was, and they just knew that they were being measured on productivity. And before they actually went in to make enhancements, because that was the idea that these researchers were going to somehow fix this, that the throughput went up day after day after day. And they're doing this like, we haven't actually made a change to any of the variables yet. How are they constantly getting better? And it was just the fact that they knew and they could track on how efficient they were being, that they competitively, they just wanted to be better. It's just built into our human nature. And a CRM system with like a visual sales pipeline does that.
Absolutely.
And I mean, even if you're used equipment manager watching your holding costs, or how much inventory, at risk inventory you're carrying, those are all benchmark points. That once you start recording that, like everybody's got a little bit of a competitive nature in there.
Scoreboard makes a huge difference. There's no question about it. And sometimes we're afraid of it because some folks that maybe aren't performing quite as well, we don't want them to get discouraged overall. But if you handle that from a coaching standpoint to say, okay, you see where you're at. It is what it is, right? I mean, now let me help you move up the scoreboard, if you will. What's it going to take to get you up the scoreboard? And you'll identify those folks that have the opportunity. Maybe they're in the wrong seat of the bus. I mean, that's totally possible. Yep. And you'll identify that as well. But if you don't have a scoreboard, there's no way you're ever going to manage that. No question about it.
Good. Well, before we get to our final question, which I want the final question to be, beyond the hood, what's your advice for dealers? But I know you're a morning person.
Yeah.
Right? And as am I, so I'm always looking for tips. What do you do in the morning that gets you up? I imagine it's got to be process oriented in some realm.
Well, it's probably not as regimented as you probably think, but there's certain things that I do. It's a little different today than it was when I was in the dealership. So I'll kind of reference back to the dealership because that's probably a little more poignant for what we're talking about. But it was a lot of getting in and just seeing what occurred the day before and what's occurring right now. How many sales did we do? What trades are coming in? What do I have currently on the books? What pieces are looking at an age standpoint? How many quotes have gone out? How many sales calls were made? That type of thing. Even from an inventory manager standpoint, it's important to see if those used sales are clicking along. I don't have to be quite as aggressive with an auction plan or with that type of thing as if we're not selling any used at all kind of thing. So if I can see that from being tracked through the CRM, that the guys are being successful in moving the used, maybe not as fast as we like, it never is, but I could see those things and be able to say, okay, let's make some adjustments here. What do we need to do? So a lot of it was around reading my reports and that sort of thing. I would also look for any kind of fresh information on the industry, see what's happening today, what happened last night, because those things around the world happen while we're sleeping. Right. And so just to kind of bring yourself up to that point. And then, of course, I have to have my coffee. My wife will call me a coffee snob, so I have to have my pour-over coffee that I make in the morning. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that I have to do to keep me going. But yeah, it's probably not as regimented as you probably think, just from my personality with processes. Everybody who knows me, who watches this, will be laughing, I'm sure. They know what I'm like. So it's part of that deal. But yeah, it keeps me going. It keeps me interested in the day. And then it's like, okay, what can I do today to make a difference for somebody? And it's not, that's what I'm looking for these days, is to try and help somebody get better and maybe learn myself too. I never stop learning. I'm always reading and trying to figure out what's going on in this world, and still trying to find where these things move. Right. It's not easy, but you keep chasing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Always.
Good. Okay. So final question then, if you have to give one piece of advice for dealers in the second half of 2024, what would you pick?
I would say find the best ways to manage your sales activity and your inventory aggressively. Don't be afraid to move things from an inventory standpoint. Yes, there could be potential for a loss, but you've got things in there that you maybe might not take a loss on. Make sure you know what's going on the front end. Make sure you absolutely know what everybody's out there doing. Every move is crucial. And if you don't have systems to manage this stuff, I don't know how you would do it. So you have to take a look at investing in systems if you don't have them. Are there things out there that can make you more efficient, to make it easier for your team to sell more stuff, to see more people, to be able to get out there and make sure what's going on in your area? And don't be afraid to be aggressive on pricing, but make sure you have a system that tells you what you should be getting after and taking a look at, because there's just no way in the thousands of pieces that you have in inventory, it's impossible to see them all as one individual. But there are systems that can point out things. And if you do that, you will see success, no question, from bringing that down. But Inventory's a big one right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, use the best tool for the job. That's one of the
Absolutely.
lessons I learned early on the farm.
No question. No
Good.
question.
Well, Duane, thank you for joining us on Beyond the Hood with
Absolutely.
Tractor Zoom. And I've made sure that this is actually being recorded this time, so we are set. Thank you, everyone, for joining Duane and I on Beyond the Hood with Tractor Zoom. Make sure you take some time to subscribe, share this podcast with your colleagues, and we look forward to having you again next time. Take care.